Hello everybody. Sometimes I think my Marvel Legends reviews are a little bit like buses. There's nothing for a long period of time and then suddenly you have a flurry all at once. But today I'm going to be turning my attention to the recently released Spider-Man retro carded wave. And whilst I haven't bought every figure in this wave, I have picked up a couple of must-haves for me. And chief amongst those is the Chameleon from the animated series. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know I love the Spider-Man animated series and I love this subline of Marvel Legends. That being said, Hasbro are a little bit all over the place when it comes to their Spider-Man animated series line. Sometimes we get them in these single carded releases like this, and other times we get them in these deluxe box sets, these cardboard box sets where we usually get two figures at a go. They seem to have reverted in the case of Chameleon. I'm not sure if this signifies the end of the box set releases, which is a shame because I did quite like those, or if this release just represents a one-off in another line. I guess only time will tell. Anyway, needless to say, this was high on my list of acquisitions because I really wanted to have a animated series specific costume Chameleon in my collection. I have a lot of the Rogues Gallery now from the animated series, and this was a really important missing one. So really delighted to finally have this. But let's kick off by taking a look at the packaging. Well, I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan of this retro card. I love the artwork. I grew up with this toy line when I was a kid. In fact, I actually owned this figure in its original form, as you can see here. And a lot of this has been replicated accurately here. It's a little bit different, but for the most part, it's definitely in keeping with the style and tone of that original line. I love the logo. I love the cityscape in the background, the colours, the purples, the oranges, and I just love the way this looks. I also really like the newly commissioned artwork there of the Chameleon, slightly different to what we got first time around, and I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Again, if we flip this over and look at the reverse, we see that original image on the front of the packaging writ large here. We have a little bit of bio about the character, and then we see the other figures available in this wave, very much in keeping with the original Toy Biz line from the 1990s, showcasing the other figures that are available, which is really fun. I love this. I think this looks great on display, and I just think it's really, really fun. Now, the first thing that struck me about this figure upon opening him up was just how large and muscular he was, much more so than I remember. But I did a quick photo reference, and sure enough, he actually is pretty built in the animated series, which is a marked difference to his comic book counterpart. And I have to give Hasbro top marks for this, because this is something they don't always get right when they do so-called animated series figures that often don't look that close to their animated version. This is really screen accurate, like it is spot on. I love the costume. It is, of course, unique to this version of the character, and that is even reflected in his build, so I think that is absolutely brilliant. If we take a look at this head sculpt, I think it's actually a pretty cool head sculpt. You can't really go far wrong with the Chameleon, to be honest, because it's a fairly blank expression that he has, but I really like that they've actually managed to create some attitude there. We can see those arched eyebrows. He looks pretty mean and angry, which is kind of cool, and there's some nice paint taps here and there as well, particularly around the eyes to draw a little bit of detail and attention here, which is pretty cool. The only thing I was slightly disappointed with was this collar, which is a separate piece, and it does look a little bit incongruous there. When you're posing the figure, it can ride up a little bit and it look a little bit strange. But otherwise, I think they've done a fantastic job. I'm not sure if this is a brand new sculpt, because I don't actually recall seeing that particular chest piece before, but I might be wrong. But it is really nice that we've got the shoulder pads there that I think are specific to this character. I don't think we've seen these before. Certainly the new the sash that he's got there, that is a brand new piece, and I really love the belt piece here as well. Now, in what has sadly become the norm for Marvel Legends, there are no paint washes running over this figure to draw out any detail, add any extra shading and depth, which is, disappointing. And I'm kind of tired of complaining about it at this point. It does seem to be business as usual, unfortunately. That being said, this is quite a colourful character. There's a lot of different coloured plastics here that help draw the eye and make him quite visually interesting, so I think he can get away with it a little bit more than others. But personally, I am disappointed that we're not getting any cell shading anymore on these animated characters. Hasbro have had a very mixed approach when it comes to cell shading on their animated series figures. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't. It seems increasingly that they've moved away from that idea, so I'm sad to not see it here, but I understand that not everyone loves it. Looking at the articulation then, well, he does have a ball joint at the top of the neck, so he can spin his head all the way around. He can lean it left and right a little bit too, and he can nod it up and down thanks to that very helpful hinge joint there. And there's actually a good range of motion here, which is fantastic. Now, he's got ball joints in the shoulder, so the arms will lift up and out. There's a complementary bicep swivel, a double joint at the elbow, allowing that lower arm to fold all the way back to his shoulder there, which is pretty cool. And he's got the standard pin swivel at the wrist, so of course that will rotate all the way around, and it will hinge forwards and backwards. He's got a straight swivel at the waist, so of course he can rotate all the way around there, and he's got an ab crunch in the center of the torso there, allowing him to bend forwards and backwards. Not a huge range of motion when it comes to going forwards, but actually quite decent when it comes to folding back, which is helpful. Now he's got ball joints in the hips as well, so of course the legs will kick out to the side. There's a thigh swivel at the top there, as well as a swivel at the top of the boot cut as well. So the legs will kick forwards, they'll go back just a bit, and there is a double joint at the knee, allowing that lower leg to kick all the way back there. Finally, we have the ankle pivot, which will allow the foot to hinge forwards and backwards and rock from side to side. In terms of accessories, Chameleon does fairly well. He comes with an additional pair of closed fists, a pistol, some kind of shotgun, and we have this J. Jonah Jameson mask. Now, this mask is kind of weird on a couple of counts. First of all, it's just a really unusual piece. Obviously, it's newly sculpted and commissioned for this particular release. It's obviously condensed. It looks like an empty mask. It's nicely painted for what it is, and you can see there's a gripping groove there for him to be able to hold this in his grip, which is pretty cool. And for the most part, this does actually work. I was kind of skeptical about how effective this would be, but to be fair, he does seem to grip it quite well, although it does look a little bit weird in his grip. But the thing that's most strange about this is that the animated series of the Chameleon just used to touch his belt to take someone else's face or their disguise. It's kind of weird that he's got a mask here, because that's very much a comic book version thing. So that's kind of strange and unusual. I'm not quite sure why they went to the effort for something that's actually inaccurate. But oh well, I guess that is a mystery for another day. Now, he does have the pistol and the shotgun. Both of these pieces have been released before. What's interesting about the pistol is that it's a little too small for his grip. Although it fits nicely into his grip, he can't actually get his finger onto the trigger because his finger's a little bit too wide, a little bit too big to go through the hole there. Now, thankfully, that isn't a problem with the shotgun, and I have to say his hands are actually perfect for this weapon. It's lovely to see, actually. He can hold it in his grip, he can get his finger through the trigger there, but he can also stretch his fingers around the actual barrel, the grip of the gun there as well, which looks really, really cool. So I have to say, this is actually a really nice fit and probably the best, most effective way of displaying this particular weapon, because we've had this on a few different Marvel Legends in the past and it's always a little bit clunky. Here it works beautifully well. So then, final thoughts from me. I'm going to give this figure 4 stars. I'm actually tremendously, very, very pleased with this figure. The only shortcomings, in my opinion, are around the lack of paint apps, the lack of cell shading, but these are not specific to this one figure because we see this pretty much across the board now when it comes to these figures, so I'm not going to hold that against it too much. I do like the articulation scheme. I think that works perfectly well. I think we have some fun accessories, although maybe not accurate, and would I have preferred some alternate heads? Probably. That would have been pretty cool, but hey, whatever. But despite this, I actually really like this figure. I really like the body mold. I like the sculpting. I like the plastics they've used in terms of the colour. It looks really accurate for the most part based on what we see on screen, which is really fun. I love that attention to detail. And I think he's a really fun addition to what is one of my favourite lines, actually, for Marvel Legends. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.